Call to order. Board of Zoning Appeals for February 13th, 2023. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the January 23rd, 2023 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that we approve the minutes from January 23rd, 2023.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Mole. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. We have special requests or continuances. Mr. Nelson.
I believe Russell Brown is online.
Mr. Brown, are you there?
I'm here, yes. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we would respectfully request that BZA 2022-046 and BZA 2022-047, both on behalf of Racetrack, be continued to the March 13th meeting of the BZA. As was discussed last month, or last meeting, we would like to come back when you have a full complement of board members. And we're hopeful that that can be achieved by March 13th. If not, we've worked with staff on an alternative plan to move forward with at least a portion of this, but we'd like to have this continued for at least 1 month. And that would be our request this evening.
Okay, appreciate that. I'll take a motion. Mr. Mole to move 46 and 47 to March 13th. Motion by Mr. Mole, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Yes, we are also hopeful that we will be fully staffed by then, Mr. Brown, so we'll keep you apprised.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, there's no findings of fact. So we'll move on to old business, which was BZA 2022-046 and 047, which has been continued. Is there any old business from the floor? Seeing none, we will move on to new business. First up is BZA 2022-048 from petitioner Menard Incorporated, requesting approval of a use variance in order to operate an outdoor storage facility. All those wishing to present, please stand and be sworn in by our secretary. Is there anyone online wishing to speak to this docket? Okay, seeing none. Go ahead, sir.
Perjury, the testimony about the street of knowledge.
All right, come on up to the podium. Tell us, well, first of all, are all the notices and receipts and everything in order?
They are in order and in our file.
Drew, we're good.
And I would admit the Unified Development Ordinance to the records.
Okay. Then name and address for the record.
Yes, good evening. Nick Brenner, 5101 Menard Drive, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I am a real estate representative for Menard Inc. Just dive right into it.
Just tell us why you're here.
All right, perfect. So we are here today to propose a new self-storage facility right next to the Menard store. Menards is now in year 2 of a massive expansion plan for our stores. We're adding self-storage facilities next to our stores wherever we can find excess land. We're even getting to the point now where we're looking to buy adjacent property so we can add self-storage there as well. For all intents and purposes, we do this as an expansion of the Menard store. It operates very similar to the outdoor lumber yard, where store employees and store management are going to be in charge of operating this facility. So it's something that we are working hard on. We got a half dozen already operating. We got another half dozen that are going to be done here in another couple months. And we're looking at 20 to be constructed this year. So we're going at a pretty fast clip here. And these again are all throughout the Midwest by our stores. Just to give you a little background, so this facility, all the units on the exterior, the perimeter face inside, so the back of those units act like a fence. What that does is it hides those overhead doors, it hides any lights, and it hides the people that may be using the facilities. The facility is fully secured because of that. We have security cameras throughout. And to gain access into the facility, you have to go through an overhead gate, very similar to the yard gate at the store. It's got a couple big overhead doors. You type in a code, and you can go ahead and get in. Only people with current units have a code. So as soon as you get rid of your unit, your code deactivates. You can't access the facility. For this particular location, it's a great fit for the property. Again, it's right next to the Menard store. but it's a very quiet use, it's a very low traffic use, hardly any light coming out of it, if any. So it's actually a good buffer between the more high intense commercial use of the store and the outlots to the east, to the residential units to the southwest. So it actually fits on this property pretty well. Another thing for this particular property, as part of this project, we would be putting in and installing that frontage road, would be to the east of the facility, and it would go from next Menards parking lot essentially down to the south property line. I think the city's always been pretty keen on getting that done. So we would be doing that as part of this project. That would also create a 2-acre outlot to the east of that road, which will remain for sale for outlot commercial purposes. There's one other thing I want to touch base on why this is important and why we're doing this from site to site. If you have the site plan in front of you, you can see we did leave about 160-foot gap between the existing yard and the self-storage facility. What that is doing is we are taking our best guess on what we may need for the future for that store if we ever need to expand it. We just went through 2 full company remodels in the last 5 years, trying to adjust to the times, trying to stay competitive with online retailing. So we've been able to expand that store multiple times. We're taking our best guess on what we may need. But what this also does is by allowing us to construct self-storage on this facility, it will guarantee that this property remains in Menards ownership. Meaning that if we guess wrong on that acreage, that 160 feet, we can take and remove part of the self-storage facility to accommodate the store. Because that is always what's going to drive the primary purpose is the success of that store. So by allowing self-storage, keeping in Menards' name, we're able to put a use to the property instead of having it be vacant, and also reserve the right for us in the future to possibly use that if we need it. It also helps the city because this is going to be a $3 to $4 million investment that would happen as opposed to like just having this property be vacant. So I'll answer questions on the operations, but I do want to, vent maybe here a little bit on kind of the process we have gone through that we've been a little frustrated with. Don't know if this is going to carry any weight, but I think everyone should know. A year ago, we approached city staff on this project to discuss it. It was February 2022. We were told at that time that this use was a permitted use. So we spent the next 6 months internally designing multiple layouts for this facility, spending tens of thousands of dollars on engineering. Excuse me. Just to get to November, where we're told that it's no longer permitted use. There's new staff in place, so the interpretation of the code changed, and we would now have to go forward with this use variance to be able to go forward with the self-storage project. At the time, it sounded like staff was still going to be in support of this project, so we didn't really care much about it. Figured it is what it is, we'll move forward. Fast forward a couple more weeks, up to a couple weeks ago, we got another report from staff saying we will only be supportive of this project if you meet these 3 conditions. Those are the conditions that are in the staff report. Fast forward another week. A week ago, we were then told that staff no longer supports this project at all. So in the course of 1 year, we have gone from a permitted use to a use variance with staff support, to a use variance with staff report with conditions, to a use variance with no staff report. After we spent hours on this project and spent tens of thousands of dollars on this project. So again, don't know if it means a lot, but I do have to vent that's the process that we went through and the frustration that we have seen as part of this project. We've been a member of this community for 20 years. We are always looking to invest in this community. We've seen brick and mortar retailers shut their doors throughout, the nation, but yet Menards is always here putting its best foot forward. And we just would like that returned to us as well. But with that, I can answer any more questions on the project.
Before we move to that, we do need to get on record your detailed statement of reasons, your answers to the statutory criteria for this board.
Okay.
So do you have those answers in front of you by chance? They're like
Yeah,
5
I
of
think I
them.
have it here.
Yeah, so number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because you have that answer. You can,
Yeah, do you want me to just?
yeah, you can read it or you can summarize it in your own.
Just summarize it then.
However you want to do it, but we needed it verbally on the record for you.
Okay, I'll just say it. Menards is proposing a self-storage facility that is classified as an outdoor facility per city code. However, the site is 100% screened with the storage building to act as a buffer to the outside. The storage use is not visible from the outside of the facility and could not impact the public. Storage is a business that has high demand in this region, and the location is set back from any main roads by 500 feet. Menards has found that placing storage near retail stores brings more traffic to the store, and the storage and uses as well. So the uses are well suited to be located next to each other.
And number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
As mentioned before, the storage is 100% screened into the buffer from the outside world. From the outside, it would not be immediately apparent that this is a self-storage facility. Menards does not use barbed wire or chain link fence like typical self-storage facilities do. The storage doors face inside the facility, and there's no view of any door or storage from the exterior. This is the same model Menards use on existing retail stores to screen activity from the lumberyard. The same method of screening means that there is no net change in the impact on the surrounding property or public. The surrounding properties are all commercial properties, and Menards operates these facilities as commercial operations the same way the stores are.
And then number three, the need for the variance arises from some condition peculiar to the property involved because
The particular property is not suited for typical commercial development. And all lot use like fast food restaurants, a bank, or tire shop would not choose this location because it has no frontage visibility. The small size of the lot means that many other uses are automatically eliminated as well, as they would not fit on the available space. The property is not suited for any residential use, and Menards has no intention of using it for industrial use. Following the zoning code would result in this property remaining vacant forever due to these reasons. Storage is a fantastic use of the property. Not only does it match the outdoor storage type use found at Menards, but it matches the look and feel of the Menards store. This project also allows Menards to invest money into a second business in the city on land that is already owned. And I also like to point out too, what I stated before, about the fact that Menards will be able to use this property in the future if needed for any store expansions that might arise.
Okay. And then number four, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will constitute an unusual and unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought because
Strict application of the ordinance means one of two things. First, creating indoor climate control facilities to meet code is not as desirable to the consumer and would not have the same occupancy levels as the proposed facility. Menards would be creating a subpar business from the start. The second outcome with adherence to the ordinance would be the project doesn't happen at all. With the ability to construct an outdoor storage facility as proposed, Menards cannot make the project a viable business. Menards has taken the intent of the ordinance to create an attractive storage facility without the chain link fences and roll-up doors and hit all of the uses from. Sorry, I don't know where that sentence is going. From the exterior of the facility, it looks like a normal building and similar to what an indoor facility would look like. Again, I would also add that any sort of indoor facility, more massive, much harder in the future to revise and change as this outdoor one would be to allow Menards to expand.
okay. And then number five, the approval does not interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan because
Storage itself is an allowable use as long as it is the interior storage type. Storage is also a large component of the Menards storage use. Menards considers self-storage a commercial use. The customer pays for it as a service and receives a product. In this case, the storage is the service and the product, but the functionality is the same as the Menards and self-storage.
any final words to add before staff, well, I guess, so you mentioned the three criteria that the staff had prior to saying they were not in favor. They do still have those three criteria for us if we were to approve it. Those are that number one, the exterior envelope of the development, excluding points of access, shall be fully encapsulated by a combination of 10-foot masonry walls between building gaps and a full masonry rear outward facing. Walls of the perimeter storage units is highlighted in green on Exhibit C. So you're good with that? You understand that, right? Yep. Number two, that per 35 lineal feet of building wall, a minimum of one tree of 2-inch caliper and 3 shrubs must be planted around the entire perimeter of the development as highlighted in yellow on Exhibit C. Areas that require drive aisle plantings do not need to double this standard. The western side of the development facing existing Menards warehouse excluded. And then number three, planting strips with a minimum width of 10 feet must be planted along portions of the perimeter facing the street and parking lot as highlighted in pink on Exhibit C. Shrubs, flowers, long grasses, ornamental trees at the recommended spacing by plant type. Spacing distance for plantings may not be greater than the recommended spacing by plant type. Western side of the development facing existing Menards warehouse excluded. With that, I actually, Mr. Nelson, I'll turn it over to staff to get your comments on what you had in the staff report and any additional you'd like to provide tonight.
Definitely, thank you. I do want to acknowledge that the discrepancy between it basically coming from a allowable use to an unallowable use resulting in a use variance. The definition defines a storage indoor self-store facility, and then it defines a storage facility, outdoor facility. The indoor facility does not allow the units to be accessed from the outside. It has it accessible only from the inside of the building. Previously, it was, they were under the impression that this was an allowable use because of a possibly a wall around the storage units. I felt that it was still accessing them from the outside. Each unit was still being accessed from the outside, and that it did not fit that definition. I felt it fit the definition of storage facility outdoor, which talks about the individual self-contained units that are accessible from the outside. That is not in our use table. When something is not in our use table, that is when a use variance can arise from that. So that's kind of how it got to be a use variance. So I do understand that would be a frustrating turn to take. I think essentially what it comes down to is staff has evaluated the attachment A statutory criteria, and we did not feel that this property had any particular hardship or a peculiar reason that it could not be successful as a commercial use that is a permitted principal use. I think that also should be noted, although this is a use variance, if it were to be approved, the petitioner would have to come back for multiple dimensional variances as it is a steel buildings that would not be allowed under our commercial design standards.
Anything else to add?
No, I think that's all.
You have 5 minutes if you want to respond to any of that or add any comments.
Yeah, just on the facade itself, the storage units that we do are steel, that is a prototype, that's what we like to do. I think we communicated over that we're willing to look at the masonry and go that route, so even if this does get approved tonight, which I hope it does, we're not necessarily gonna have to come back to that. I still have a little bit of reservations for the facades that face the Menards stores, is no one can see them, and those are the walls that are most likely to come down if we were to expand. But again, it comes down to getting this project or not, and we will definitely look at that, refits of those facades. So other than that, I don't know if I have much more to add.
I'll close it. Sorry. Yeah, anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
What side is the building gonna be on the storage units, on the south side there?
Do we need a?
Yeah, sir, I'll need you to stand and be sworn in if you're gonna testify at all.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Do you swear on this perjury testimony against the truth and best of your knowledge?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, man.
Do you swear?
Oh, yes, okay.
Okay.
And what is your question, sir?
Okay, what side, is it gonna be on the south side of the storage units themselves there, next to the lumber yard, you say?
Yeah, I have a site plan here if you'd like to look at it real quick. Just bring it over.
Is that going to affect property values or taxes? Okay. Well, I guess we need to. Should we have?
Name.
Sir, name and address for the record.
Stephen Matthews, 93 South Reston Road, that's Greenwood. Thank you. Okay. All that next one. What are the trees? I say, okay.
Anything further, Mr. Matthews?
No, I'm sorry.
Perfect. All right. Anyone else? We'll close the public hearing. Open it up for the staff. I guess I'll make a comment first as with this board, obviously you need to meet the criteria for us. That's what we're trying to decide here. So with that, any questions specific to any of the criteria that Mr. Moore?
You mentioned that you would feel if you just didn't get through that the lot would be vacant for a long time. Have you guys thought about trying to market it to like other restaurants? Like, I know like Texas Roadhouse is on the other side of it. It seems like it's always very busy, and that area would be prime real estate for additional restaurants to go in. So
Yes, the property has been listed for sale ever since we bought the property and developed it 20 years ago. So I guess in terms of evidence of it's not the best suited for commercial, I think that's probably indicator number one, is that it's been on the market for 20 years, and we have sold some other lots and whatever since then, but this one has never really gained any attention. And again, it sits a ways back from the road, and it's going to be the third.
Recording in progress.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just to finish that point is, it's the third tier of all lots. It sits almost 2 football fields away from the road. It's kind of an awkward lot back there by the residential. We think for all those reasons, if it was great commercial ground, look around, everything else has been developed. We think this would be too.
I guess I have a follow-up question, but I think it'd be more for you guys. Is there a limited number of storage facilities we allow in Greenwood? Because I know right now, I think I counted there's 9 just in the city of Greenwood. I just didn't know if it seems like there's a lot to have in place.
Yeah, we don't have any proposed limit or cap on storage facilities.
I can tell you they're all full for the most part.
Yes, they are. Not just here, they're- it's crazy. You go to Omaha and they're going off every single corner out there. It's crazy.
Mr. King?
Well, I guess first thing I'm confused, is this open air or is this in like a building with units inside? I mean, that seems to be a point of, it's not clear to me.
So there's a bank, there's a building with units. So the perimeter ones all have just one set of units facing one direction. And then there's like anywhere from a 25 to a 35 uncovered driveway that goes to the next building. We'll have units back to back. So wherever you have units, they'll be in the building, but there's driving, wherever you drive in the facility.
So it's effectively like any storage unit where the storage it's indoor storage. You have a garage door, your
Yes.
storage indoor, but the drive-through is all open. I mean, everything's open air from that standpoint.
Yep. And actually the staff a year ago distinguished between indoor and outdoor, at least to us, saying RV parking, boat trailer parking, stuff that you have outdoor parking stalls, that's what's outside storage, and the rest of it was inside storage. So that was what when we heard that as a permitted use, that was what he told us, and that's what we went on the next 6 months believing. That distinction, but yes, everything we are proposing is within a building. Nothing can be stored outside.
And to that end, in indoor storage where it had a roof over the whole thing, they would not be able to drive from storage unit to storage unit. They would have to park outside, effectively go in with a covered, fully enclosed facility, but they could do storage that way.
Correct. You can look up storage buildings where inside the building has the units for storage. You access them from the inside of the building. You can't back your truck up to it and open up a garage door and unload or load your stuff. You have to go inside to an actual physical building, and inside that building there'd be individual units.
I guess my question would be then, if we would allow that, why would we make a distinction between that and something like this, which is still fully barricaded, fully blocked and out of view, and no one really would be able to see what's the trucks driving through, the cars driving through. Well, what's the distinction there and why? Or what are we trying to prevent, I guess?
I think, well, part of it is, you can see the steel corrugated, storage buildings in this. It was told to me that that was intended because it is one of the products that they sell at Menards, so they wanted to advertise them. I think a lot of it comes down to the aesthetics that we want in the commercial use area, the commercial large area. If we did have a building that you can actually go inside of, it has our masonry requirements, our transparency requirements, foundation plantings, etc. What Menards is attempting to do in this situation is use the back of the steel buildings to form kind of a perimeter, and the gaps in between there, they're adding more of the corrugated steel to wall off. Original request for the masonry wall that they wanted to do kind of like a half, part way up masonry, and they still wanted the buildings inside to be visible for the sales part. But that can be looked at again with our dimensional variances for the building. The actual like corrugated wall, that would be something that's not really a building design standard. It's a putting steel in between the buildings to block the view. But I think it's probably the desired targeted use and how that fits into the area. But yeah,
I guess one other I have is hours of access for, I mean, some are 24/7 with this because it's attached to the store, sort of.
Yeah,
have a more
so
restricted.
it's a great question. This is, you are able to access it 24/7, just within storage. People, it's for that service, they need to look at their stuff if they need it. But yeah, the store is gonna be, they are present during the store hours. They're not gonna have like off hours, so it's the traffic is usually pretty limited to that time that the store is open.
Ms. Peters?
If I heard you correctly, then with the development that you're proposing here, that you're asking for the use variance for, you would end up developing that roadway that connects or would connect Marlin Drive over to where the CVS is at. Is that correct?
I think whatever's on our property is, because I think there's a portion of that road that isn't on our
Okay.
property. I don't know exactly how that works, but yes, we're at least going from the current parking lot to the property line. I don't know any more further than that.
Okay.
I apologize.
and the I may be able to answer, at least from a staff perspective. The last time Menards came through, they were supposed to do a primary and secondary plat of the property to establish the outlots and the right of way. It looked like to me in our records, they had started with the primary plat, gotten approval, and somewhere off along the way, it fell to the wayside. So they are still conditioned where they will need to finish platting the area. And then once those lots would either be sold for a restaurant or another use, or be developed by Menards for storage, if you guys choose to grant this, we would have them develop the road with the development that goes in. So it would be a part of their site plan at the time a development goes in there, no matter what that development is.
And I believe that plan is ready to go. We've redone it.
And then the way I'm understanding it, all of the I've been through a lot of these storage facilities where they have all that chain link stuff. So in order to avoid looking trashy with the chain links, you're utilizing the back of some storage facilities as your wall.
Correct.
so to speak, to go around it so that it doesn't look like a dump.
Yeah. it's-
Because when people see the chain link, you get the wind and it's blowing the debris and it catches on it and it looks fresh. So this way it wouldn't look bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm understanding. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And you gotta remember too, this is a Menard owned and operated facility. We want it to look nice because this is our product, right? It's one of the reasons we have a fence around our lumberyard where a lot of other retailers don't have any fences. We always try to make sure that things look nice from the outside. That was the main purpose. Designing these units this way where we're using the back, those units, 8, 10, 11 feet tall to screen everything from the ground level.
I think there's only that.
Would a change in zoning allow them to do that? Is this something they could ask for as far as that? How would that work?
This is not a use that's been designated in our list of permitted principal uses. So it is something that our ordinance has them go for a use variance to allow that use.
Okay, so there's no zoning category that allows that type of storage.
No commercial, no industrial, no anything.
No, we have a definition for this, but we only, our permitted principal use table has the indoor self-storage, which you cannot access from the outside. And then it also has outdoor storage for like the RVs and such. It does not have the outdoor storage facility designated in our use table.
Or any.
It's something that as staff looks to kind of make suggestions to plan commission and council, it's something that we can look at, but right now we don't have a use, a zone associated with that use.
So the 9 that we have in the city all got a variance?
They probably came through, well, not probably, they did come through before the zoning ordinance update in 2020,
Okay.
October of 2020. There was one that came through under a planned unit development, which they used a different zoning ordinance, one that they have actually, it's not our table that we would use.
So did I just hear that prior to October 2020, they would have been able to go forward with this?
I would have to look to see what that was zoned and what it associated with. They, I think we're probably talking to my predecessor under the new code from the emails that I've found and kind of in digging back through this case.
So I'm asking all these questions. I mean, I don't see where it's injurious to public health safety. I don't see where the property adjacent is affected in an adverse manner. I do think trying to understand where there's peculiarity, you've outlined quite a bit. That's why I was asking these questions around how this lot has kind of gone historically. And then the strict applications, creating an unusual and unnecessary hardship. I think that's maybe the biggest one here is the ability to use that lot for something else that is allowed. Sounds like you've tried for 20 years to sell it, so you explain that. I think there are probably arguments on both sides of that, so I appreciate all the input so we can try to make that decision. I don't have anything further, so I guess I will take a motion to adopt all the evidence of the record.
Chairman, I move that we amend all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Moll. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. I will take a motion on the ballot itself.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request with the 3 conditions listed, and I'll read through those. The first being exterior envelope of the development, excluding points of access, shall be fully encapsulated by a combination of 10-foot masonry walls between building gaps and full masonry rear, outward facing walls of the perimeter storage units is highlighted in green on Exhibit C. The second condition being per 35 lineal feet of building wall, a minimum of 1 tree of 2-inch caliper and 3 shrubs must be planted around the entire perimeter of the development as highlighted in yellow on Exhibit C. Areas that require drive aisle plantings do not need to double this standard. Western side of development facing existing Menards warehouse excluded. And the third condition being planting strips with a minimum minimum width of 10 feet must be planted along portions of the perimeter facing the street and parking lot as highlighted in pink on Exhibit C. Shrubs, flowers, long grasses, ornamental trees at the recommended spacing by plant type. Spacing distance for plantings may not be greater than the recommended spacing by plant type. Western side of development facing existing Menards warehouse excluded.
Motion by Mr. King with the 3 conditions on the status report, second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries 3-0. 3-1, thank you. My math is off tonight. I'll take a motion to direct the Corporation Council to draft written findings of fact.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2022-048. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as a final decision and final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Move forward. It doesn't sound like your journey is completely over, but you can start moving forward with the next step. So,
Sounds great. Thank you all for your time.
thank you. Next up is VCA 2023-001 Development Standard Variance Petitioners Crossroad Engineers on behalf of Amanda Cunningham Johnson, requesting relief from the following 2 sections of the Unified Development Ordinance. Number 1, accessory structures must be located in a rear yard and won't allow an accessory structure in a side yard. And number 2, a commercial medium format development standard side yard setback to reduce the side yard setback from 20 feet to 0 feet. All those wishing to present on this docket, please stand and be sworn in.
You swear to perjury, the testimony is true to the best of your knowledge.
Then, go ahead and approach the podium. And is all the receipts and notices in order?
Yes, they are, and they're in our file.
And I need to admit the certified copy of the Unified Development Order.
Name and address for the record.
Derek Snyder, Crossroad Engineers, 115 North 17th Avenue, Beach Grove, Indiana, 46107.
Snyder, tell us why you're here.
Thank you. I'm here on behalf of the owner, Amanda Cunningham Johnson, and the developer, Cunningham Restaurant Group, to request 2 variances for the property located at 1464 West Stones Crossing Road. Property is located on the southwest quadrant of Greenwood. Oh, am I controlling it?
You can.
Okay. Sorry. Just had a presentation and I didn't realize that I was staring.
Both of these variances are about the same building being in the location that it currently is now. I don't know if there is a way you want to look at that for the sake of time. But
Yeah. I will get to that when we get to the state and everything. Yeah, so we'll keep both of these tied together because it looks like, from what I've read, most of your responses are identical for the two. So we'll combine that when the time is appropriate.
All right. So property is located in the southwest quadrant of Greenwood. More specifically, it's in the northeast corner of the Stones Crossing Road and Galena Drive intersection. Property is zoned commercial medium. It was actually rezoned in 2021 in the CN district. Some of the adjacent land uses, the barn and bay horse inn, which is actually owned by Amanda Conning and Johnson, is due north. Some residential to the east, Schwartz Crossing commercial subdivision to the south, and then Copper Chase Apartments and Emmanuel Church to the west. As noted in the petition, this is an existing non-conforming structure. It's the barn outlined in red, overlaid over this aerial. When the property was rezoned to CM, and as we're going through the process to plat this for the coming development that was associated with that rezone. As you'll see on the next slide, as a result of that rezone and the plat process that we're working through right now, essentially what happens is the need for one of the variances is because that yard that was a rear yard when it was zoned residential, as this becomes platted, now becomes a side yard because the future building would face Galena Drive, which results in the need for the variance to allow an accessory structure in the side yard. The second variance is for just that, the structure to encroach in said yard. So that's how we essentially ended up with the need for two variances. I'm working through the statutory criteria.
So before you do that, and I appreciate it, but just to confirm, your answers apply to both requests.
Correct.
Okay, yes.
So
Go ahead.
the granting of the variance will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. That's because it's an existing non-conforming accessory structure that has been in place since approximately 2013, 2014, and has not been deemed injurious to this point. It also does not negatively impact any existing or proposed public or private utilities or vehicular movements associated with the site in either its current condition or the proposed redevelopment. Granting of the variance would not adversely impact the use of value in the area. Again, it's an existing non-conforming structure that's been in place for several years. And it's not at this point impacted the use or value of any adjacent property. It's also worth pointing out that the developer and owner are working together to draft an encroachment agreement that would allow the existing structure to remain in place and be incorporated into the redevelopment of the property. That's evidence that the property owner who will sell and allow this to be incorporated in the development obviously does not see that this would negatively impact her property value, as she is comfortable granting that encroachment agreement, allowing it to remain in place. The strict application of the ordinance would result in a practical difficulty because it would require that structure to be reconstructed or relocated outside the setback to comply, which is an unnecessary practical difficulty given its age. The structure is less than 10 years old and it's in excellent condition. And it doesn't pose any, it's not injurious, it doesn't impact property values. So the need to move it would result in practical difficulty. And the last criteria is that it's not a regulated structure under IC 821-10-E.
Anything else to add? Anyone else wishing to speak on this before I ask staff? Okay, staff, your comments? Looks like you were favorable.
Yes, we are favorable of this request. I don't see how changing it from a rear to side yard really affects anything, so we're good with this.
Any other comments? If not, close the public hearing. Board, Mr. Wall?
Nope.
Mr. King?
Nothing.
Ms. Peters?
Nothing.
I have nothing either. I'll take a motion to adopt all the evidence in the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Hall. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Take a motion on the ballot.
Mr. Chairman, on request number 1 to reduce side yard setback 20 feet to 0, I move that we approve this with no conditions.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Ms. Peters to approve with no conditions. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0 for request number 2.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve request number 2 to allow an accessory structure in a side yard with no conditions.
Motion to approve with no conditions, second by Mr. Mole. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. We'll take a motion to direct the corporation counsel to draft written findings of fact.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2023-001.
In progress.
Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as a final decision and final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Mole. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. You are good to leave the barn exactly where it is. We will take final action in a couple weeks. Thank you. Thank you. Up next is docket BZA 2023-002, a development standards variance from the Garrett Companies requesting relief from the Unified Development Ordinance of a residential multi-unit complex with a building height to reduce the minimum height from 30 feet to 26 feet. All those wishing to speak to this, please stand and be sworn in by our secretary.
Chief Brown.
Is there anyone?
True to best of knowledge.
I'm sorry. Go ahead of myself. Is there anyone online wishing to speak to this? Okay, seeing none, go ahead and approach the podium. Is everything in order? Receipts and notices?
Yes, they are in our folder.
Drew,
And I move to admit the Unified Development Ordinance into the record.
name and address for the record, please.
It's Matt Weaver, Development Associate, Fair Companies, 1051 Greenwood Springs Boulevard in Greenwood, Indiana.
Hey, tell us why you're here.
So as I mentioned, my name is Matt Weaver, Development Associate with the Garrett Companies. Our office is located at 1051 Greenwood Springs Boulevard. This evening, I'm requesting a variance to reduce the minimum height requirement for our clubhouse building on our property. Before I get to specifics of the request, I could give a brief introduction to the Garrett Companies and the history of the property.
Sure.
So as you may already know, we are a fully integrated real estate development company, meaning we develop, construct, and manage our properties. The company was developed or founded in 2014 by Eric Garrett with 6 employees. In the past 9 years, we've grown to over 180 employees while maintaining our company headquarters here in Greenwood, Indiana. We specialize in only luxury Class A multifamily, where appropriate, we incorporate mixed use components as well. To date, we have over 50 projects across 17 states. A little bit about the property, which you might already be familiar with. Property I'm here to discuss with you today is approximately 16 acres and is located on Emerson Avenue, just down the street from our headquarters. It's sandwiched between Red Dot Storage to the north and the Maple Grove residential subdivision to the south. The rezone was approved at the July 18th City Council meeting last year, where we rezoned the property from industrial large to residential multifamily complex. We also secured variances at BCA on 11/28 of last year. For mechanical equipment screening, the reduction of front and side transparency requirements, and the reduction of the minimum dwelling unit size. Tonight, we are requesting a variance that will reduce the minimum building height requirement of the clubhouse to 26 feet. Per UDO standards, current minimum building height for RMC zoning is 30 feet. The reason for this request is to allow us to construct a one-level clubhouse that is complementary to the surrounding two-level residential buildings, while also giving height variation to the site. Additionally, being a shorter one-level building will be a identifying feature for the clubhouse, making it easier for residents and future residents. And just to reiterate, we are seeking to have this apply to only the clubhouse building.
Do you have your criteria in front of you?
I do.
Let's step through that, get it on the record. So number one, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
This building height reduction would visually complement the multifamily buildings and keep our community as appealing as possible for our surrounding neighbors. This variance will only affect the clubhouse building near the center of our property, eliminating any impact to neighboring properties.
number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
As it only impacts one building elevation on our property away from the surrounding property and seeks to only benefit them by improving sightline variability.
Okay. And number three, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property
Because it wouldn't allow for building height variation throughout the site. Additionally, the clubhouse is a one-level building and it serves no practical reason for the structure to be designed at a minimum height of 30 feet, considering its use as an amenity space and leasing office.
And then number four, the structure is regulated under Indiana Code 821-10-3 for hazard air navigation. And it sounds like you're working with the FAA on the above application and that approval will be conditional.
That's correct.
Anything else to add before I ask for others or the staff?
I have nothing.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Nelson, from a staff perspective.
I assume the airport would be favorable of a reduction in building height, but this is only for the clubhouse, like you mentioned. We see no practical reason why we should require the building to be 4 feet taller than it currently stands. We have a minimum for the primary structures and a maximum for the accessory structures. This falls right in between those two. We see no reason why this shouldn't be approved for the Garrett Company's project.
Anything else to add? And, oh yeah, and then the one condition you have is the final plan shall substantially conform to the building elevation depicted in Exhibit D. So you're familiar and okay with that?
Correct.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. Mr. Mole,
No
Mr.
questions.
King, Mrs. Peters.
No questions.
Only question I had was to you, which was, seems really crazy that we have a minimum on buildings. I assume that's for the residential, but even with that, I guess I don't fully understand why a minimum.
Could possibly be trying to avoid the appearance of very short buildings. I don't have a great answer for you today.
Fair enough. I will take a motion to adopt all the evidence into the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Mole. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Take a motion on the docket itself.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve this request with the condition that The final plans shall substantially conform to the building elevations depicted in Exhibit D.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Mole with the one condition in the staff report. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Take a motion to direct the corporation's council to draft written findings of fact.
Chairman, in consideration of, I'm sorry, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BCA 2023-002. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as a final decision, final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Mole. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. You're good to proceed as well. We will take final action 2 weeks, but you can get rolling.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys for
Any new business from the floor? Seeing none, any announcements?
No announcements.
Drew, any announcements from your side?
Not from the corporation council.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Your turn. Microphone's off.
I would decline.